Welcome, welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for choosing you today. We're going to talk about some emotional expressions. Feelings can be really hard to express. It might make you uncomfortable, or maybe it's a foreign concept to you, meaning you were never taught how to express emotions. Um, Maybe when you express an emotion, someone close to you made you feel less than because you were telling them how you felt. Whatever the reason, I'm glad you're here. So, how do you feel? Saying how you feel can actually be really productive, and it's healthy for your mental state as well as your physical state. But how do we do this better? How can we do it so people can understand you better? Well, let's find out. Throughout the class, I'm going to ask you to write some things down, some words. So if you want to pause the class now, go grab a paper and pen, and let's get started. The National Library of Medicine did a study on emotions in everyday life. And what it found was that despite decades of research establishing a cause and consequences of emotions in the laboratory, we still know surprisingly little about emotions in real life. Now, according to Tim Hartford from The Guardian, we often find ways to dismiss evidence that we don't like. Not surprising. And the opposite is true. When evidence seems to support our desires, we are less likely to look too closely at that contrary evidence. It's a good thing that Mr. Hartford found that most of us do not actively wish to delude ourselves, even when that might be socially advantageous. We need simply to develop good habits. So ask yourself, how does this information make me feel? Do I feel vindicated? Or maybe I feel smug, anxious, angry, or afraid? Am I in denial, scrambling to find a reason? All right, so where do I start? There are a number of emotion wheels out there. We're going to use this one though. So take a look at the very center of the wheel here. These are what are known as the core emotions. Now, Healthline calls this emotional literacy, the ability to name and communicate your emotions or your feelings. Now, depending on what is going on at any given moment during your day, basic emotions will either intensify, become milder, or even combine to produce any number of emotional states. And this is where the emotional wheel comes into play. You might say, "Oh, it makes me so mad." But if you know something else to say, you might stop and think, and you might recognize that you actually are hurt, not mad, by something that someone did. Or maybe you can express that you're actually scared. But instead of being scared, you might actually consider that you actually feel rejected by something someone did or said. So let's take each of these sections and let's break them down into something more manageable. One could say we could start here, as simple as it gets. Is if I asked you to place each of the words on the right into either pleasant or unpleasant, it'd probably be really easy for you to do. These are the core emotions again that we just talked about: mad, sad, scared, peaceful, joyful, powerful. Now, we are taught these from infancy, either deliberately or through learned behavior. But if I asked you to elaborate on each one of those core emotions, how difficult would it be for you? This is where the work comes in. It's going to help you find a more effective way to communicate and get people to listen to you. So let's look at them. If I experience someone being cruel with their words, this hits my instinctual knee-jerk reaction, meaning this is one where I rush in with even crueler words or perhaps a snotty or harmful remark. This is a knee-jerk reaction. That's the one that that we have learned behavior. It's something that's ingrained in us. It's our first initial gut instinct. But what we need to learn to do is to act instead of react. Emotions happens as a sequence of events. You're rushing through the house, you stub your toe, that causes pain. And then right at that moment, your kid comes up, yanks on your pant leg and says, Mommy, Mommy, I need you to do this. And you're in pain and you're dealing with your stubbed toe and you yell at them, hold on a second. You're not mad at them per se. It was the sequence of events that caused you the pain that you're upset with. All right. The first section of the feeling emotion wheel. If you see red when you get riled up, then you might be mad. But there are a great many other feelings to consider here as well. So you have to ask yourself, what am I really feeling? Hurt? Jealous? Those are two of the more common emotions, which get overshadowed by the word mad, meaning people use the word mad in place of actually feeling hurt or feeling jealous, as mad is more commonly used in our society. Now, you don't have to get to know all these words in the red and the pinks. Okay, just get to know a few of them, the ones that stick out to you on a more intimate basis. If there are some that you think might apply to you, write them down. Get to know them, get acquainted. And then when this feeling of quote unquote mad arises, you can defer to these other words that you now know, the ones that you now feel closer to, that you've studied. When you do this, you not only add to your own emotional bank of wealth, but you're going to add to others as well. Peaceful. All right, something on the lighter side. Look at all the words in the blues. This may conjure up thoughts of someone sitting cross-legged while meditating, but there are so many other ways you can feel peace or peacefulness. You may be lucky enough to stumble upon a room full of yogis doing their thing and decide to join, but really, you would probably have to plan for that to happen. Get yourself to that situation first. Now, as we said before, emotions happen as a sequence of events. Some events you can create, some events you stumble upon, and others create events around you. But peace or peacefulness can be created. It can be a state of mind. Okay, you may be saying, yeah, right. Now, I'll admit that even after a few years of meditating and doing yoga myself, I still don't have that concept of constant peace or constant peacefulness surrounding me at all times. But it does make it easier to pull myself back into that place once I find myself in a place that I don't really want to be. Now, this place, it does not have to be a physical space. If you're a novice to the idea of peace or peacefulness or a state of serenity, then starting out, making a physical space somewhere is a great way to help you create this state of peace in your life. If some of these other words speak to you again, if some of them think that you might want to incorporate these into your emotional bank of words, write them down, get acquainted with them. Just because you know the essential meaning of peace or peacefulness does not mean you can't get to know some of these others. And maybe they're going to suit you better under different circumstances. Again, add to your own emotional bank of wealth. All right, let's look at the orange yellowish color ones. This is probably my least favorite emotion. Well, mainly because the way I relate to this core word, scared, is not simply as scared, but I relate to it as helplessness or insignificant. Just saying those two words, out loud make me really uncomfortable. As a human being, no one wants to be helpless, and certainly we don't want to be insignificant. If emotions happen as a sequence of events, how does one get to the point of feeling helpless or insignificant? This can happen in many ways. Perhaps you were told this over and over as a child. Maybe you had someone take your power away from you by hurting you physically or emotionally or both. Maybe you have mental health issues that you have not yet been able to deal with. These can cause these emotions. And there are many more, but these feelings are real, and when left undealt with, can cause serious pain and significant life trials. I'd like to point out that in this specific section of the feeling wheel, anxious emotions and having anxiety are two different things. Anxiety can be an actual medical disorder, one which requires a medical professional who can deal with this. Anxiousness is just that. It's an emotion, albeit a very strong one at times. If you're interested in learning more about anxiety, I do have a class on that as well, so look for it. Take a look at these words. Do any of them jump out at you? If so, write them down. Learn of them and use them the next time you want to express yourself. You are adding to your emotional bank. Okay, let's look at the green words. Do you relate to this word, powerful? If so, excellent. That means you see yourself as having great strength or influence. But being powerful should not be dominating or making those around you feel less than. That is actually negative. Being powerful is using your strength and influences that you have to lift, support, and positively guide others to a better place. Now, if you don't associate this word with yourself, are there any others that you relate to within this category? Or are there some that you want to get to know better or bring into your emotional life? Great. Write those down. Feel them out. Use them in your daily words of emotions. When you do this, you not only add to your own emotional bank, again, you're adding to others. You're creating power for yourself and giving power to others. Sad. I hope you don't feel this way right now, but if you do, you should know that sadness is normal. It is a part of the human condition. All who live eventually feel sadness in one form or another. Look at all the words in the purples here. What speaks to your soul? If you have a general feeling of meh all the time, you may have what doctors call melancholy. This can be a part of depression, and you might want to think about reaching out to your medical professional. Some of the most common emotions that humans have are ashamed and, surprisingly, depressed. But we still use the word sad to convey those two. Please be mindful as you go through this class in labeling your emotions thoughtfully. It's only going to help improve yourself on your road to recovery. And remember that as you do this, what? You're adding to your own emotional bank of wealth. All right, now we're looking at the yellowish colors. This is probably my most favorite section of emotions because when you have joy in your heart, there is not much that can shake your foundation. Now, that being said, it can take a person a lot of hard and persistent work to root out those other negative emotions and let joy take root and blossom in its place. Joy can only come from pure and untainted action. Remember that. Emotions happen as a sequence of events, which means you can create that sequence out of pure intent to create joy for yourself. Joy can come in many forms. Sometimes it's quiet and introspective, and other times it's loud and proud. Either way, if you have it, enjoy each moment. If you want it, get it by repetition and getting to know the words you relate to best. Write them down, understand them, implement them each day as you express yourself, and add to your emotional bank of wealth. I want you to understand that as spiritual beings on a human journey, you can have, and maybe you already have had, a multitude of conflicting feelings all at the same time. And what I mean by that is you can feel pain, but you can also feel joy at the same time. Think of all those women who give birth every day. Trust me, I know. Another example is you can have sadness in your life, and yet you still might have moments of happiness. Another thing I want you to think about is negative emotions. Negative emotions can come in many forms, but I'm going to talk about one sneaky little thing that you might have or you might be in your life. It's called the toxic relationship. Do you have any in your life? Those are the ones that we allow to stay in our lives for a long time usually, and they fester in our souls. Do a little internal audit right now. Think about who in your life. These are the relationships that never bring you joy. These are the relationships where you give and you give and you give, but you never receive from that relationship. Or maybe, are you the one creating a toxic relationship in somebody else's life? Are you bringing people joy, or are you the taker? Are you bringing people down? Just something to think about. Take a moment, do a little internal audit, and think, really think. Do you have any festering, toxic relationships in your life that you would be willing to release, to let go, in order to find more joy, more happiness, more stability in your emotional life? I want you to understand that as spiritual beings on a human journey, you can have, and maybe you already have had, so we have been talking about adding those words to your emotional bank. Here it is. Take a look at your list. If it's really long, just circle a few and work on those words first. Don't overwhelm yourself with a whole huge list of words that you want to get to know, because I don't want you to give up. That's not the point of this. This is to motivate you to express your emotions in a more functional way, a more productive way, so you are better understood by not only yourself, but those whom you communicate with. Now, reacting is a normal response to most any situation. It takes a meaningful purpose and lots of practice to gain the control of acting instead of reacting. It takes mindfulness in every situation. So, use those words you've chosen and be mindful in your emotional life so you can act instead of react. You will find in doing this that you will get a much better response from those you are trying to communicate better with. If you enjoyed this class, please visit my others at unshamed.co, and you can also visit and see my other classes on Kathleen and Unshamed at YouTube. Make sure you subscribe so I can continue to keep putting these classes out there. And I add classes all the time, so be on the lookout. If you're ready to make changes in your own life and would like someone to coach you along, I'm waiting for you. When you're ready, go to my blog and click on the coaching tab. Make sure to reference my resources pages on my blog. Go to my homepage and you will see one for mental health, self-care, and healthy living. Here you'll find many offers, both fun and helpful, to help you on your journey. You can also find me on these social media sites. And always, feel free to email me with questions. I'm here for you. These are the sources for this class today, and I'll leave you to it.